Do you believe in the unknown? Do you believe in the things that go bump in the night? We're here to talk about it. This is Aliens and Stuff.
Hi and welcome to Aliens and Stuff. My name's Mike, this is Tom and Spence, and this week we're going to be talking about the Phoenix Lights of 1997. So, for the first show, Spencer, we've got a bit of a treat. Probably the biggest kind of eyewitness of a UFO account ever.
I mean, it's definitely up there. We're talking thousands of eyewitness accounts.
Absolutely.
You know, as many as 700 reports. And so it's going to be on the Phoenix Lights.
Phoenix Nights with Peter Kay? Or?
No, the Phoenix Lights, which actually was on a Phoenix night. So just setting the scene, March 13th, 1997, between 7:30 and 10:30 p.m, thousands of people witnessed a triangular formation of lights over Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico. Now, the evening can best be described as two separate sightings, a triangular formation moving through the skies above, and later that night, hovering lights which stood stationary over Phoenix, Arizona. Now, eyewitness accounts have described it as a V-shaped wedge or a boomerang, but also as an enormous solid structure that blotted out the sky, or potentially several separate smaller crafts flying in formation. Now, the official explanation? The US Air Force has explained the phenomenon as a military training exercise where long-burning illumination flares were dropped from an A-10 Warthog aircraft. So we've actually got a bit of footage of that, which we can put up on screen.
Here we are in Arizona, and if I can focus in on these flares, which that's what I'm sure what we're going to be told they are, but I don't think that's what they are. They're fading in and out and changing colors. Sorry about that. And there's a blinking light like a helicopter or a plane going around these things, as you can see on the left.
So let's go on to the second one now, yeah? And see what we can find from the second angle.
Yeah, try pull the other one up, because the other one looks a bit more
Mr.
kind of
Spink,
steady,
show us
doesn't
the
it?
second one, because that's certainly a little bit more
That's the one.
clear. Yeah. Show everyone at home this one.
See, that looks like something out of Independence Day, doesn't it?
That's absolutely crazy. I mean, you can see, how many lights can you see in that one? 5? 6 lights?
Out of interest, when was Independence Day? 96?
96. Was a year before that.
Oh, right, crumbs.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit more, Spence.
That's my bit. So, I was going to pass on to Tom now to have a chat about the timeline.
Well, yeah, so the timeline. So this is quite interesting, actually. There's two sightings. Well, the sighting is split into two parts, should I say. The first part, there was a V-shaped object, which was spotted in Nevada, which is the state across from Arizona. And the first sighting was something about the size of a typical airliner, but it was triangular shaped, looked a bit unusual. But then there was more reports that came in about 20 minutes later, at about 8:15, which is in Prescott, Arizona. And that was something which was, again, it was a very similar description. People reported it being a little bit bigger, again, silent, not your typical kind of plane, all right? And then you start to get reports nearer to Phoenix 5 minutes later. And again, this is all being over multiple states, all reporting the same thing from different witnesses, okay?
Yeah.
Then probably the biggest one, apart from the final one, is a man and his wife reported a sighting above their house. They described it as being a mile long, triangular shaped object, no noise, very unusual. And then the final sighting was at 8:45, where this craft was spotted flying away towards the mountain range, right, in Phoenix. That's the footage that is across the media.
That's the
everywhere,
footage
because
we've
that's
just
the one
seen.
it was that's the footage we've just seen. Not the other one that was. They could be the same thing. This is the whole point. We don't know.
They've seen by
whether it's the same
thousands
thing.
of people. That.
Seen by thousands of people over half an hour to 40 minutes. It sounds like they're split into two separate events, because it almost looks like they're not describing the same thing. That's how I've kind of read it to be anyway. I mean, what do you think? You've done a little bit of research.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, where if it's incredibly unlikely that you're going to have a formation of lights in an almost identical pattern in such a short distance from each other, that, you know, there's some connection there, isn't it? And I think for me, it was just looking at the different witness feedback. You know, I was digging into this, and it's, you know, we're talking about police officers. You know, the second person I believe that reported it was a retired police officer.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at military personnel. We're looking at ex-pilots. You know, so these aren't just, you know, some hillbilly out in the bayou. These are professionals. You know, these are people who have some kind of knowledge of this, and I just think it's incredible the sort of breadth of people that reported it.
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing is, and we've got a bit of footage of this actually, the Star-Lord's dad, or otherwise known as Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Previously unidentified pilot, one of the first people, we don't know exactly, but one of the first people to report seeing these lights, actually reported it. And here's him actually on the One Show with Chris Pratt talking about it. So if we could just play that clip.
Later as well.
I was flying him to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach, and I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him, and I was coming in, we're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" And I then it kind of like came out of my reverie, and I said, "I don't know what they are." I said, he said, "Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna call him," and I reported it.
Yeah, so add to that list, police officers, military personnel, pilots, actors, but it's more than just that.
Actors. It's Kurt Russell, man. He's the boy.
But it's more than just that. I mean, even so, when the lights were entering Phoenix, there's a truck driver, Bill Greiner. Now, this guy's an eternal skeptic. He even went on record and said if anybody had asked him about aliens before this or UFOs, he thought they were as real as the Tooth Fairy. That's a direct quote. But he reported the event, and he said, you know, I was a hands-down skeptic before this.
Maybe we do a show on the Tooth Fairy at a later date. That's a good topic.
But I mean, with the truck driver, right? If you're going to make such a claim to say that you've seen something, right?
Yeah.
And you turn around and say, "Oh, but I was always a skeptic.
Yeah.
I've never believed in anything like this before." It's kind of, you're trying to push as much credibility into something that you're saying.
Can you really believe that?
Can you really believe that a truck driver who says, "Well, I've never believed in it before, but I've seen it with my very own eyes"? It just.
But it's not just for truck driver, is it? That's my point.
No, absolutely.
We're talking pilots.
That's probably the biggest thing for me is pilots.
Air Force officers.
But they initially, even the Air Force and everything, initially denied that anything was happening, didn't they?
Well, we'll get on to that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's important.
That's where it gets more interesting.
Definitely. So keep tuning in to wait for that.
And you've got to remember, you know, a lot of the information that's coming across, there is sparse video footage. It was 23 years ago.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, a lot of this is anecdotal. It's it's stories, and we're talking about. We're looking at this through the lens of 2020.
Well, we're looking at the lens of 1997, should I say, and it's pretty grainy.
Yeah.
You know, what would the video cameras of this day and age pick up?
Well, I think the point about that is that back then, Photoshop, etc., was a lot harder to do. It was something done by mainstream studios. So nowadays, if you saw something and somebody, let's say, did it over London, obviously because we're in the UK, just to use that as an example, and you saw 9 lights all in uniform, all the night lined up, the first thing you say is, someone's doctored that, somebody's done that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Unless you're physically there with your own eyes, but then I would suppose if 100 people all uploaded it from different angles, then maybe you can claim differently, which is kind of what this is.
You know, this had thousands of people saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays that would ignite Twitter. It would be everywhere.
Oh, it would.
Facebook,
all over the internet.
You know, but back then, different environment. I think the big one for me, talking of witnesses, Fife Symington. So
that's an interesting name, Spencer. Who is it?
The former governor of Arizona at the time. Really, really interesting.
I think we're going to disagree on this one.
Well,
I think we will.
Got a clip. I'll tell you what, actually, we'll go to the NBC News clip first, and then we'll move on to Fife Symington. So if you could pull that video up.
At the Phoenix airport, there was nothing unusual on the radar, but controller Bill Grava and his colleagues could see the lights.
They were amber-colored, very bright, and on a scale of 1 to 5, with an airplane light being maybe 2, these are 4.5 at least.
With an Air Force base nearby, many assumed the lights were burning flares suspended from parachutes, but the military says it had only routine fighter flights flying that night and no flares. Some, like Tim and Bobby Lee, claim they saw even more.
Something was there. It was a structure. It was going 35 miles an hour. It was huge. It didn't make a sound. And you tell me what can do that.
Yeah. So like I said, people from all walks of life saw it.
That's the sign I was talking about, where they looked up at it, it's over the residential area, it's moving across, it's like there's definitely an object there, but they could see through it, and it's a very unusual thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is when people afterwards come out and say, "Oh no, I saw it as well," that's where you get difference in the sightings, because not everybody who reported it actually saw it.
Yeah.
Some people want their 5 minutes of fame, don't they?
Thing is, but a lot of these people that said that they saw it, they didn't say at the time that they were really panicking about it. They said it had an element of calm to it, and that they weren't scared when it was going over them. And I found that really interesting. So obviously we'll come on to that a little bit later in the show about the theories behind why this happened. But Fife Symington's a really interesting case, isn't it?
Yeah, so Fife Symington, the former governor of Arizona at the time, we've got a very brief clip of a press conference that he put out.
And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please.
So he denied it. I mean,
he denied it and tried to make a mockery of the whole thing, didn't he?
He didn't deny it. He made a mockery of it.
Yeah.
Now, following on from that, he later came out, much later. And you've got to bear in mind as well, Fife Symington, this guy's a former Air Force officer. And he's a pilot.
He changed his tune, if we would say that politely. I mean, this is quick time, but this is about, 10 years later, from what I'm understanding, this clip?
You can tell, we've got a little clip, actually, from CNN of a later interview, and you'll see by the quality of the video, it was much later. Can we bring that up, actually?
Yeah, go on.
Is that all right?
No, I'm serious now. That unquestionably it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
Right. Doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, and a pilot. Got a lot of hours flying. So it was pretty breathtaking.
Now, my problem with this, okay. He's the mayor of Arizona.
No, he's the governor.
No, he's the governor.
Sorry. He's the governor of Arizona, right? So he's in a position of power. Used to be a pilot, very well respected. 10 years later, no longer the governor of Arizona, right? Isn't that almost like saying, do you know what, if I change my tune on this gives me another kind of 5 minutes of fame here.
You think he did it for PR?
I think he did it for PR, absolutely.
Well, I'm not so sure.
I wouldn't say that he denied it when it first happened. He just made a bit of a mockery about it and
was he made to?
He might have been. Who knows? Now, a quote from him later on. So, as an ex-Air Force officer, as a pilot, he said that the military said it was flares, didn't they?
Yeah.
He said that categorically it was not high-altitude flares because they do not fly in formation. So he's later on denied what the military explanation is.
Genuine, I think.
He's also alleged that his office did inquire at the time, but received no answer.
From the government?
Yeah.
So he alleged it, but there's no evidence that he ever did actually inquire about it.
So he made a mockery of it, and then he inquired about it because he wasn't sure, and then it was denied, and then 10 years later he's saying actually what he saw, he couldn't explain.
Well, we don't know that he denied it at the time. He just made a farce of it, which...
You've got to wonder, haven't you, whether he was told to do that.
Yeah, but okay, right, so but people are going to pressure him and say, right, if you don't get somebody to dress up like an alien and call a press conference, right, okay, then, well, they'll be... What are they going to do to him?
It could have been Andre the
Abduct one of his family? Do you know what I mean? What are they going to do? Threaten him? How are they going to threaten him? Do you know what I mean? I can't...
Well, you don't know though, do you? You hear these stories about men in black.
I know, but then...
It was Andre the alien. There he is, up there on our set. It was definitely him. He was the one that was brought into the room.
I don't really need to put any blame on Andre.
To move it along and give a bit more context, then you've also got Frances Barwood. So I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Who's Frances then?
So she was a city councilwoman for Phoenix, Arizona at the time.
The person in power, yeah.
So basically, she was getting a lot of response from her constituents saying, you know, what's going on here? What's going on? Obviously, then they haven't got it from Fife Symington, have they? So yeah, she brought it to the attention of the city council and basically said, you know, are we going to investigate this? Now, she kind of got a lot of blank looks from it, and afterwards was told by another official, categorically, you shouldn't have asked that question. And
Is that a direct quote?
That's a
Shouldn't
direct quote.
have asked that
you
question.
shouldn't have asked that question. And then,
Sounds like a cover-up.
well, following that, apparently, it led to massive amounts of ridicule within the political sphere of the time. So she was literally dragged through the mud over this. But all she was doing was trying to get an investigation for all the concerned members of the public who brought it to her attention.
And thousands of people saw this.
Thousands!
But my problem with this is if she goes and asks that question and then she gets told, oh, you shouldn't have asked that question by people, how many people are in the know if there is a cover-up?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Very good point.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me that people at that level would know.
At the same time...
And also, why didn't you just turn around and say, oh, don't be so stupid, you're wasting your time, and come up with some other farce to shake her off the scent? Why come up saying, oh, shouldn't have asked that question?
But at the same time, I mean, you've got to take into account as well the sort of cultural mindset of the time. You know, this is a less technologically advanced era. I mean, I would argue that people were maybe less likely to believe in like alien encounters and things back then.
This is just post-Cold War as well, just at the end. I mean,
and
Cold War ended in the obviously early 90s. This was late 90s, so we completely appreciate that. But were they trying to avoid panic?
Well, it has just come off the we said earlier, off the Independence Day run, hasn't it? So.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was more of it's a Hollywood thing, and I don't know, but maybe just culturally back then it was different.
With the sighting, if you take the Phoenix, the lights over Phoenix, the 9 lights and what have you, right? There's so many. I can't put my finger on whichever way you look at why it would actually even be there, why it would exist, right? Mm-hmm. If it was the military and they were doing something covert, right, and then maybe it was a secret type of aircraft or whatever. Why would they be experimental? Yeah. Right? Why would they be flying around with the lights on, and why would they stay stationary over a city? Well, that makes no sense to me.
We'll get into that debate later because, for the meantime, we've got a quick video from AZFamily TV3, which is an interview with Frances Barwood about her opinion on how it was covered up. So, if we can roll that clip.
Why isn't somebody investigating this? And can we? And if it's a hoax, then let's find out. If the government knows what's going on and they feel that the citizens shouldn't know, why do they have such little faith in us?
That's telling. The government knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. Why would she say that? And that's interesting language that she's used there. Mm-hmm. It is.
You don't believe it?
I don't think that's like very credible. I don't
very credible.
Much.
She was a city councilwoman that demanded an investigation and didn't receive one. How much more credible can you get?
No, I don't know. She just doesn't come across very credible. I don't know.
Wow.
Or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
So you don't think we should use that towards coming up with a kind of conclusion as to whether we think this is?
You can use it all you like. It's your opinion. I just think that, I know she's a city councilwoman, but
she's elected.
Oh, mate, look who's elected in this country.
Let's not get onto that. That's a different show.
I know what you're saying, but there we go.
Different show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the next point I was going to get onto is we've been through the witnesses, we've been through the official response, recreation. There's been so many experts throwing their 2 cents in. There's been a lot of different attempts to recreate it. For an example here, so former F-16 fighter pilot Ty Groh says it would have been, it could have been Ty Groh.
Okay, great.
Yeah, similar. I might be saying that wrong.
We'll say Tiger.
But so he's a former F-16 fighter pilot, and he says it could have been flares, and that flares in the sky act like hot air balloons and can be propelled by the wind all at the same time in uniform. What's your thoughts on that?
No.
Nah.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy it.
F-16 fighter pilot.
Because I'm correct. I've just double checked me on this, but they tried to recreate it by dropping flares a week or so later, and it looked nothing like it, and they all dropped at different rates.
It was. I can corroborate that. It was 3 years later.
Oh.
It was the 3rd year anniversary, and it was the National Guard.
It took them 3 years to come up with a recreation, which didn't last anywhere near as long.
Well, they dropped flares, and they said that they were too erratic, and there was no formation. Yeah. But you've got to take into account, who's to say that the weather conditions weren't
it happened to be the perfect night across 1.5 miles.
Well, it does happen, mate.
Absolutely, I'm sure it does. But it's
so. Let's talk about the flares, okay? Are they saying, or did they say at the time that that was all dropped by the same plane, or did they have, say there's 9 lights?
There was multiple planes.
So multiple planes, all a mile apart, or within a mile of each other, dropping flares at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
They denied that they did that though for like a week, didn't they? They came out originally and said that the local Air Force, the local said it wasn't us. Did they not say that? That was their original stance. It wasn't us. We had nothing flying.
They did, yes. So.
And then conveniently.
Changed their tune.
Changed their tune. It was flares. Then 3 years later, they dropped flares. It doesn't act in the same way. It doesn't produce the same effect.
So they were in the sky for about 20 minutes, from my knowledge.
Half an hour to
and
40 minutes.
By your timeline, the lights were in the sky for.
The sighting lights were like an hour, half an hour to 40 minutes.
And the flares were up for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but they also were erratic. They had a different light signature and everything else.
They didn't stay static.
You ever see?
So that says a lot, in my opinion, that even if they wanted to try and cover this, let's just hypothetically say, I'm not saying this is out of this world, okay? They cannot, the government want to cover it up, okay, as an example. They can't, because they tried recreating it and they can't.
Yeah, but...
They haven't done it properly.
Are you a scientist?
No, I'm not a scientist.
Right. Okay, so you can have two.
He's getting into me.
Well, you can have two different test conditions which look like they're the same thing on the surface. But there's multiple different factors. So it looks like we've full steamed ahead into the Air Force discussion. But several weather stations that analysed it on that night said that the wind direction, which was blowing east, would have taken the flares in that direction in a uniform style. Now, especially because, we're saying that they were, witness testimony from the time is pretty anecdotal. Yes, we've got some footage of it, but we're talking about grainy footage from a camcorder 23 years ago. We're looking at, okay, so yeah, there might be a bit of discrepancy about what the military's done, but what if it's some sort of test of some sort of technology or some scenario? And they didn't want people to know about it, but then there's some panic about alien invasions, and they've gone, well, actually...
Well, no, but if they did want anybody to know about it, why drop it over the city of Phoenix, where thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people can see it? That makes no sense.
Well, unless it was an experiment in...
Mass hysteria?
Well, mass hysteria. It could be an experiment into, if we do this, would our aircraft be noticeable in the night? It could be, if we did this, what would happen? Would they blow in the same direction? It could be some military strategy about dropping bombs onto a populated area.
To be honest, it could be, let's see if we can freak a city population out, and can we control it?
Yeah, it could be. It could
be
like
almost like a mind experiment, if you will.
Let's
everybody wonder what's going on. How can we control this from that city in the outside area?
Yeah.
It could be.
Another thing to note as well, you're talking about geography here. It's not far away from Area 51.
It's not a million miles away at all. It's the next state.
And that's a show very much for the future, guys. I think we need to get into the meat of quite a few different events and phenomena before we get on to something as big as Roswell
in there and see if he
Area
gets shot.
51. Which I might go. Send me there. Let's do it. But that isn't far away, and geographically and historically, a lot of things have happened in the whole area of Nevada, and so this is something else.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say is the original sighting of the triangular-shaped object looks like it originated in Nevada, which is where Area 51 is. So in that area,
across.
Yeah. So whether they are two separate entities or whether they are the same thing, if they're the same thing, that could be where it originally came from. Or is it that thing let's say it is a thing that was spotted over the city of Arizona, right? Maybe that was dispatched to go and see it. If it was, I'd be very surprised why it was moving so slow over a residential area.
I mean, we talked a lot about lights here, okay, but there is also eyewitnesses that say that this thing was a vessel. I mean, you can't necessarily believe it, but I'm just talking about
lights
and they're saying it's like a carpenter's square, so like a right-angle block. Discuss.
But I think the difficulty here, though, is it's once again it's all anecdotal. So some people say it was a boomerang. Some people say it was a gigantic solid object. Some people say it was separate crafts. Some people said it was silent. Some people said it sounded like rushing wind. So if you look at, there's a reporter in Arizona, Tony Ortega, interviewed multiple people And they all claim different things.
Yeah.
Because it's purely anecdotal. And yes, we've got footage, but would a
grainy, isn't
a
it?
23-year-old video camera be able to detect a smoke signature 70 miles into the sky?
But I think my problem is that the witnesses, before the second event, the witnesses of the first event, so the triangle, Carpenter Square.
Square.
That, what they describe is not what we see in the videotape. Because if it was, and those are just lights along the side of it, that thing is way bigger than what everybody else described.
Unless it's separate craft.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think they're two separate things.
But this is the thing. I mean, some people said it blocked out the sky. Some people said it had
see through it.
Some people said it had a water-like, iridescence almost, and it's all shimmering. So nobody's giving a straight story.
But the problem is, regardless, I don't understand why, whether it is man-made, whether it's alien, whatever, why leave the lights on?
I don't know.
So
that's the bit, isn't it? You just think you would, if you're being covert and stealthy, you wouldn't leave your lights on.
We are coming on to the aliens and stuff now, aren't we? Because let's face it, let's look at it from their point of view. Okay, we're not saying this for a minute. Okay, we're not saying it's aliens or a UFO. Well, it is a UFO by definition. It's an unidentified flying object.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it if it's out of this world.
Okay.
Okay. It is a similar question that we talked about the Air Force or about the government running an experiment. Why over Phoenix? If it was an alien being not from this world and they came here, why would they leave the lights on a craft a mile across above a city as populated as Phoenix, Arizona?
I think it'd be easier to explain why not.
Yeah.
We're looking at if it's alien, who knows what the motives are? It's close to Area 51. Maybe it's an alien psyop. Maybe they got lost. Who knows? It's aliens, isn't it? It could be anything.
Mistake. We humans make mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe good to assume that alien races make mistakes.
It's a pretty basic mistake.
It's a pretty basic mistake.
It's not like, I mean, it's, come on.
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, if you're that technologically advanced, you probably don't even need lights.
True. But it's just that thing. I think at the same time, you've got to look at it from the Air Force perspective. As you guys rightly said, if it was the Air Force, why? Why would you? If they can't make their mind up about, first it's we don't have any planes flying that night. Then it's we did have planes and they dropped flares. And then they said, well, if you drop flares over Phoenix, what about the other lights? Oh, that was someone with flares attached by fishing wire to helium balloons.
There's a riddle within an enigma.
They've got a whole desert. They've got a whole desert in the next state with no cities in it that they could do that in.
To be fair, it is a testing ground, isn't it? That's where Area 51 is that they used to do all the nuclear tests there. That's what is there. The reason why it is there is because it's barren and nobody can see what's going on. There's mountain ranges in the way, everything else, and you can't go anywhere near it.
Well, look, I'm going to throw a fish in the percolator here, right?
Do it. Here we go.
Okay,
here we go.
So
we're listening.
Now this is purely anecdotal from me, but
when is it not?
There was allegedly an Air Force, not an Air Force pilot, an operator at the local Air Force base who said that they received a communication from the local airport earlier that night, I think it was around 8:29, that said that an unknown object almost collided with one of the aircraft, okay? And they had no idea what it was, and the base went into lockdown. Now, this is once again purely anecdotal, and the person is anonymous. And
this was years later as well.
No, this is fairly.
Was this an airport or a base that went into lockdown?
The base went into lockdown, but the airport reported
to that, wouldn't you?
Well, they did not. This is the thing; they deny it now. So I mean, but then you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. An unidentified operator from there. Really?
I know
there's so much rubbish that flies around with these things.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to believe. I'd love it all to be real, right? But also, it's like I'm willing to have my my mind open, but not so much that my brains will fall out. That's like, so I'm just trying to look and just see how I can think. Actually, could this be real? But I think there's just so many things. There's so many variations, and it's like that. There's two sightings. There's different witnesses and whatever else.
The thing is,
it's very hard to put together.
Could both sides be correct? So there's a lot of eyewitness testimony, there's a lot of video, there's a lot of anecdotes coming out from people that have said this, people that have said that have seen this and seen that. Is it a possibility? It could be both. It could be an alien craft for part of it,
well,
and then There we go.
Much
You've got
like-
something else again. He's always got something.
Well, no, much like the video that we saw earlier on,
more
it
research
did
than us.
appear that there were when they had the lights above Phoenix, it did appear as though another light had swung off, and the person who was filming the encounter said that it appeared to be almost like a helicopter.
Yeah.
There were also other people talking about seeing fighter jets within the
I
area at the
heard
time.
two like F-16s got dispatched.
Two
or
F-16s
something. Yeah.
were dispatched, and allegedly the flight commander who came back appeared shook by the experience. And this is a guy that normally isn't. So once again, you're looking at, you've got all these different things. You've got the public have seen F-16s, some people from the Air Force Base claiming that they were dispatched. The Air Force is saying that it didn't dispatch anything, but then they did dispatch flare-dropping aircraft. And
The thing is,
there
I don't
are
get it.
holes in the
Can
whole
I just
thing.
say something right now? If you are the government and you've got a covert operation going on, okay, where that involves lights or dropping flares, I don't care, anything, right, that they don't want anyone to know about, but they put it above a city. If you were about to do something like that, wouldn't you just call the local Air Force Base or the airport and go, guys, you might see something, don't react, don't ask any questions? They didn't.
It's a point.
And another thing to consider on all of this as well, when you're looking at this, is that if it could be something from another country, it might not be on this. It might not be off Earth. So you're looking back then. Okay, it's different to now. China is nowhere near the size that it is now.
Who would you think it would be? If it was going to be another country, who would you say it would
Late
be?
90s, the only other country besides
Atlanteans.
America, Atlanteans. The Guardians of the Galaxy. It was Kurt Russell. He did
Yeah.
it. No. The only countries back then with the firepower or technology that could have done it around this is after obviously the space race, is probably Russia, isn't it?
I mean,
But I don't think it is that. But you've got to explore it.
My problem with Russia is like I think their top, technological feat was probably
Space
the near
station?
space station,
Yeah.
which literally at its best is a tin can that had multiple issues with it and was not particularly great.
True.
Caught on fire a couple of times. There was a collision, this,
Yes.
that, and the other. And you're telling me that country, and that's their publicly, that's their achievement technologically speaking.
Yeah.
Have a massive,
true.
great 1.5 mile long craft powered by something that nobody's ever seen before and is dead silent, and they're going to hover it over a city just for propaganda purposes. I don't think.
Okay, so we've
Let's rule that out.
we've
then.
determined.
I-
we've ruled out-
unless you tell
I
me,
agree. No,
Yeah,
I agree.
I
No,
can't
let's-
see
okay, let's
that,
rule out
there's,
So then we're stuck with two options, aren't we? We're talking about the normal. It's the Air Force, and they're trying to cover something up, or it's the paranormal.
If it was the government doing it, they would have called the Air Force and said, "Don't react to what you're seeing."
What if it's an arm of the government that is external to the Air Force?
But they have to tell them what it is.
could be a black
Do
project.
They could ring them and
Do
say,
you want any-
just give them a call and just go, "Look, guys, you might see something. Don't react to it. Don't make a comment
Think
about
of the
it."
hundreds of people that might work on that Air Force base, though.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
top secret files.
But surely someone senior has to scramble F-16s.
Yeah, because they don't know what it is.
It's
Because
got to
it
be the
might be a
pilots,
black
the
hole
ground
project.
crew, anyone else who works on the base would have to have been there to help the dispatch, air traffic controllers, and nobody comes forward.
Well, yeah. Well, no. What I'm saying is
Prospect.
maybe they didn't tell them.
No.
What, I'm just going to hop in me F-16, boys, I'll be back in a bit?
No. They obviously they knew about that, but they couldn't have known what the project was.
No, probably. Yeah, to be fair, that's the very point, it's a need to know, isn't it? So
Yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
that
It's
was
a
the
need to
case.
know. Maybe they're trying to test the capabilities on home soil. It's better than tasting it somewhere else, isn't it?
But why above Phoenix?
Why not?
I personally.
What if they're testing?
So
what if
this-
they're testing radar? What if they're testing? There's,
But surely
to be
there's
honest, we
other
could
ways
go
to
on.
test things like radar and stuff. Surely, there's other than scaring a whole city and causing,
Unless it's a psyop.
No, you know what? I'm going to sum up my opinion on this, guys, okay? I've asked a lot of questions and I probably have insinuated certain things really just to act as devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But my personal opinion is on this, is that this was a planned government operation, in my opinion, to test how a city would react to something like this. So my vote,
So
obviously,
let's
you're
wrap
looking at
this up,
normal,
okay?
paranormal or undecided, okay? I'm going to go, I think normal.
Okay, so you're going normal.
I think it's normal.
So what do you think? So if you think it's normal, let me just probe into this.
Probe me. Not like Canadian, but probe me.
Probing, right? I was gonna say,
Not like that.
if If it's normal, what is it?
I think
You just
personally,
said.
I just said I think it's a government experiment
You think it's a government experiment to see how a populace would react?
to something unexplained.
Cool, that's fine.
What do you think? Normal, paranormal, or undecided?
You have been very kind of indecisive during this conversation.
Well, no, because originally when because I picked the topic, right, and I thought to myself, this is an absolute beauty. This is. I watched many programs and many documentaries on it as a kid, and I was like, that's real. Absolute aliens. Absolute. Why does nobody else have ever heard about this before? I'm like, you know, I like good people at school. Phoenix Lights are like, we on about
Phoenix Nights, Peter Kay.
different program.
Different program.
But now I look at it.
As an adult, you're an adult now.
I know.
Grown man.
I know. I don't want to grow up. There we go. But I think now, could it be flares given the right circumstances and the fact that the flares generate heat? My only problem with the whole flare argument is that they were up for a very long time, and they were very well spaced apart, and they maintained it up until they blinked out and went behind the mountain.
But what if they had parachutes which were propelled by the heat?
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. But to each of them have the same amount of heat to push for me, that's probably the closest explanation.
Okay.
You're gonna get just two normals, Spencer.
I think it's paranormal.
I'm surprised. Explain.
That's because I've been playing devil's advocate the whole time. The story is full of holes. You think if this was a psyop or something, they would have some contingency plan for media handling. Oh my God. Everyone needs a continuity plan. You'd think that if it was a big secret project, they'd at least have some idea what to put out instead of constantly chopping and changing their story. They don't have a clue what it was. Paranormal, done.
But then you come back to back to my story though in reply to that. Okay, I think they were testing the public's reaction. Therefore, they would do exactly what I said. They wouldn't tell people about it. They wouldn't have a PR story to see how the public reacted to it.
But they wouldn't chop and change so much.
Maybe they would to try and create a
unless it's a disinfo campaign. Yeah,
this is my point.
I think it's paranormal. I'm not moving.
Unfortunately, though, Spence, we have outvoted you 2-1 in normal. And I think that's where we leave it, lads, on this particular conversation.
I think normal.
We can. So let's sound
the wrong answer.
So you guys need to on YouTube. You need to sound off in the comments and tell us what you think. In the next show, we're going to bring some of your comments back and revisit the show, maybe for the first couple of minutes.
Hopefully
we're not going to go too mad,
a bit more
but
polished.
You tell us a little bit about the comments and what you think about the Phoenix Lights of 1997. Remember to make sure that you click subscribe and the bell so that you're aware next time we go live. And you'll see us again with another subject next time on aliens and stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day.
That's really cheesy. Good night.
Cheers and bye.